Top of the morning to you, ladies and gents, or good afternoon, or good evening, when and wherever you are tuning into our webinar, a good day to you. And welcome to the digital shores of the internet, which is more than apt because we are here today to discuss sea and tech together. My name is Siamak. Usually I run around in the shoes of the Baltic Transport Journal's editor-in-chief, but today I'm married as a Greek to show-run this webinar on behalf of GoodJob and the Gdańsk Business and Technology Incubator Startech. The event is organized by the Gdańsk Entrepreneurship Foundation, the coordinator of the first Pomeranian Smart Specialization in the field of maritime logistics and offshore. This year's Seatech is part of the Intermare South Baltic 2021 Maritime Trade Fair and Conference. During the upcoming hours, we'll dive deep and dissect a plethora of issues across three areas. First, how the technology and port industries mingle together to deliver stable development. Here, we'll have a unique mix of technology, policy, and port representatives, the last group including bigger and smaller players, sea and inland. The big questions will be what technology can do for the transport industry, what the European Green Deal and the port sector can do to the benefit of each other, and also crucially important, is there room for cooperation between port players, or is the future nothing but fighting tooth and claw for funds, cargo flows, and stake in old and new markets alike? Second, we will put the spotlight on the offshore industry, or should I rather say spotlights. The segment will kick off with a global overview of the trends shaping the maritime industry. Subsequently, we will engage in an expert panel debate to get the numerous perspectives on board. Offshore, as in oil and wind and the energy transition. Offshore, as in marine ecology, and I'm certain that many more. I will have the greatest honor and unassuming pleasure of carrying out the first two segments. The third, in turn, will have the Regional Pomeranian Chamber of Commerce going through the nooks and crannies of what is probably the buzziest buzzword in maritime nowadays, namely hydrogen. I sincerely hope our audience will find our webinar enjoyable, but most of all insightful. At the end of the day, what's all important is putting the money where your mouth is. Ports and ships of the future won't develop themselves, and the same holds true for all the industries catering to their needs. Right, let's get this boat afloat, but technical/organizational adds to streamline your experience. We have a chat. The chat is multilingual with an inbuilt translation option for your convenience. Just click the cogwheel icon and set your preferences. Next, the chat is fully open now and during the breaks for you to freely engage with each other as well as the speakers and panelists. Next, the chat is open but moderated during the speeches and debates. Feel free to send your questions. We are running a tight ship, but if we have the time, we'll bring some of them front and center. Now, please let me introduce Piotr Borawski, Karolina Lipińska, and Tomasz Shimshak, who are, I presume, more than eager after this minimalistic entry to address you in their opening speeches. Piotr will be first. A politician, city councillor, social activist associated with maritime economy and civic participation. A graduate in law and a master of business administration. In his professional life, Piotr had been working for NAFTOPort. Politically, he's a member of the Civic Platform and the Young Democrats Association. Since January 2019, Piotr has been Deputy Mayor of Gdańsk in charge of the entrepreneurship and climate protection areas. Piotr, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Lady Mayors of Gdańsk, Aleksandra Dulkiewicz, and it's my pleasure to officially open this year edition of Seatech Tech Conference. The city of Gdańsk, historically, just from the ancient's beginnings, has been connected to the Baltic Sea, and it seems to be a proper place to talk about maritime business and its traditional as well as innovative ways. In fact, the concept of the meeting is exactly like this: to look for proper and workable combination of traditional ports, shipyards, logistic and energy businesses with modern and innovative technologies and creative organizational and environmental solutions. I'm especially pleased because my personal role of the city management focuses on climate protection and entrepreneurship. Some may say it seems to be unconventional connections. Clearly, it fits into two grand ideas of the European Union in the current financial perspective: European Green Deal and Digital Europe master programs. The main topic during the conferences today will be offshore wind energy. Poland and Pomorskie region has just kickstarted their journey towards making renewable energy mixed a real thing. Our parliament has just adopted the deed titled to promote formation of offshore wind energy on the Polish exclusive economic zone on the Baltic Sea. The first offshore farm is planned to be located some 23 kilometers north of our summer coastal resort, town of Łeba. After that, the next farms are planned to be built in cooperation with big European and international energy companies. Therefore, I'm glad that Seatech is the international event organized in a proper time for Polish offshore ventures. I can only regret that this conference takes place online only, but I encourage you to visit Gdańsk and spend some days in our great historic city by the sea as soon as the pandemic ends. Have a fruitful and productive Seatech conference, and see you next time in Gdańsk in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Piotr. Much obliged. We are moving now to Karolina Lipinska. Karolina is Deputy Director for Enterprise Development and Innovation in the Department of Economic Development in the Pomeranian Voivodeship Marshal's Office. Among many, she is responsible for monitoring the process of entrepreneurial discovery, including Pomeranian Smart Specializations, the aim of which is to increase the number and quality of R&D projects in the region. Member of the Pomeranian Investment Council, mother of Zuzia and Hubert on a daily basis.
Thank you very much. And first of all, this magic question, if you can hear me. Hello?
Yes, loud and clear, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Marshal of the Pomorskie Voivodeship, Mr. Mieczysław Strug, to the third edition of the International Seatech Conference, and I'm very glad that I can take part in it virtually, especially since the aim of the conference is to link large business with innovative startups. I'm convinced that today we will gain new knowledge about the latest technological achievements and the next challenges facing the maritime industry. The maritime industry plays an important role for the Pomeranian region, which is a consequence of its coastal location, of course, at the crossroads of international transport corridors. Although employment in this industry is at the level of approximately 7%, it should be remembered that one job in the maritime industry economy generates at least 4 jobs in related industries, so it's even higher number of employees, definitely. The self-government of the Pomorskie Voivodeship that I'm representing, like other self-governments in Poland, doesn't have direct competences in the field of seaport management and the construction of related infrastructure. Nevertheless, in our strategies, we include support on the development of the port sector, interregional cooperation for the TNT networks, and implementation of solutions technologically advanced. An important industry for the region is also the shipbuilding sector, which is slowly starting to develop its own brand in the form of, for example, the production of specialized units for the demanding customer. In the maritime industry, we can say that it's a very fertile ground for innovative solutions. And therefore, Pomeranian R&D units and design offices can work for prototypes of innovative vessels, energy-saving autonomous ships powered by alternative energy sources. On the basis of the shipbuilding industry and the Pomeranian research centers, including, for example, Polish Space Agency that we have in Gdańsk, projects are also developing in the field of satellite and space technologies. They can be used in environmental protection and monitoring systems, spatial planning, and maritime transport, of course. For this reason, an important field of activity in the region are Pomorskie smart specializations, and especially one of them dedicated to offshore port and logistic technologies, which create great opportunities to support R&D projects in this area. One of the important aspects for our plans, which we do not ignore in the Pomeranian Voivodeship Development Strategy 2030, adopted just a few days ago, is the potential of hydrogen technologies, of course. Hydrogen is a great importance both from the point of view of renewable energy storage and the perception of electromobility. It's a highly efficient energy carrier that doesn't emit harmful substances. So bearing this in mind, the potential of hydrogen technologies we created in the region Pomeranian Hydrogen Valley over 2 years ago. It is an initiative to show that activities related to the development of renewable energy are not only at the stage of our wishes or slogans. The aim of this initiative is cooperation between interested entities and implementation of specific hydrogen projects, such as a project in the field of water transport connection between the port of the Tri-City and Hel Peninsula, leading the hydro generation of communication, public communication especially, or in municipalities. In the Pomorskie Voivodeship, initiatives are also undertaken in the face of energy, offshore and shipbuilding industries. For example, maybe the creation of the platform for cooperation between entities and the participants in supply chains for the implementation of installation and service functions. It is a Pomorskie offshore platform, and especially in the process involves both Pomeranian shipyards with considerable experience in the production of jack-up installation units, seaports of Gdańsk and Gdynia, which can play a role of installation ports, as well as small seaports, especially Ustka, Władysławowo, and Łeba, predestinated for acting as service port for wind farms. To coordinate this project, the Pomeranian platform, as I mentioned already, for the development of offshore wind energy was established last year. Its aim is to develop economic contacts that facilitate the exchange of experiences and the transfer of good practices, taking into account into consideration the involvement of regional and local entities that can participate in the supply chain of offshore wind energy by creating so-called local content. As part of the operation of the Pomeranian platform for the development of offshore wind and energy in the Baltic Sea, we are continuing to implement the provisions of the jointly designed signed declaration to support the development and use of regional research and development potential for activities related to the construction and maintenance of offshore farm winds. We have set a goal for the so-called initial research agenda, which will support the orientation of research and development centers and enterprises in our region in their activities. One aspect focused on creating the condition for research and the development activities. In addition, we are preparing now to create a maritime competence center in Rumia, as well as offshore cluster in Rumia. We are currently looking for partners and good practices from activities of similar centers and cluster in the Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the opinion that public authorities should inspire and support the development of new technologies, services and products, and the use of which we contribute to the improvement of the economic situation and thus the increase of the standard of living in our society. We take up such a challenge in our region, in Pomorskie region, using a partnership approach. And I hope that thanks to such events like today conference, there will be certainly plenty of room for discussion and cooperation, and the potential of Polish and European ports, the future of wind energy. Many projects can be prepared, and it will be created not only for our region, but also for Poland and the whole Europe. Thank you very much, and I wish you interesting deliberation.
Excellent, Karina. Thank you very much for painting this marine tech landscape. And high five to anybody tuning in from Rumia, currently my hometown. Finally, we have Tomasz Shimshak. Tomasz, a Master of Science in Economics and Management, a postgrad in Advanced European Studies and in Air Transport Economics, a PhD in International Business, Trade and Commerce, an MBA holder, has over the past few decades gathered a wealth of experience, notably within transport, logistics, aerospace, and executive education. Tomasz is currently the big wheel at the Gdańsk Business and Technology Incubator Starter, as well as member of the University of Gdańsk Board of Trustees.
Hello, everyone. Przemek, thank you for introduction. On behalf of Gdańsk Entrepreneurship Foundation and also the Starter Incubator, I would like to thank you, first of all, to the Mayor, Deputy Mayor Piotr Borawski for this welcoming words, and to Karolina for this deep presentation of what's going on regarding the maritime economy around Pomeranian region, which is very, very important and which is growing, of course. I would like to present, to say some brief words about Starter Incubator, which is the host of this conference. We are a two-pillar organization, especially to present to our foreign guests what we are doing exactly. We are a two-pillar organization. From one side, we are dealing with entrepreneurial education. We provide trainings, mentoring for teachers, for pupils, for students, how to behave, how to act within market economy, right? Because it's very important as our mission to prepare proper cadre, let's say, to develop our economy on the market economy conditions exactly. And from the other side, we are also the founding partner of Pomeranian and Tri-City Tech Ecosystem. We run Starter Incubator, in which we host more than 60 startups from different countries around Europe. We have several Ukrainian startups. We have some of them from India, and some from some other Western developed countries, which try to make their business ideas real here from Gdańsk. We are in Pomerania region, we are in Poland, we are in European Union, we are in a Schengen area. So this is a proper place, very open, very liberal historically to conduct business and to build up international partnerships, not only across the Baltic Sea, because we are pretty well linked across the Baltic Sea, but now we try to open up some new lines to the North Sea, to the Atlantic, to Greece, Mediterranean, and also across the pond. We have the partnership with Nevada, the state of Nevada public accelerator, based on 2 public universities there. So we also try to send our startups for teaching programs, for training programs, for mentoring programs over there. So this is kind of a broad picture we try to execute here in Starter. On the slide, you have some of our premises, our main building, exactly hosting startups, but we have 2 other buildings at the vicinity of the old town Gdańsk, in which we try to build not a tech hub is over here, but a creative hub. So a bit different angle regarding the technology and exactly what we do. And of course, we encourage you, if you have some interested parties from your countries, to contact us, because we try to link different businesses over here in north of Poland. On the second slide, moving more towards what we are doing here. Of course, we have 2 ports over here in Gdańsk and Gdynia. They are in fact 2 separated port authorities, so they, not only on paper, but practically they compete with each other. We have 3 modern container terminals. Second place, which is not exactly the truth, because in last weeks or months, deepwater container terminal in Gdańsk just ran as the best container terminal on the Baltic Sea, bypassing a bit St. Petersburg terminal. So this is interesting, a very vivid history, right? That even during the pandemic, circumstances, our container terminal is becoming bigger and bigger, more efficient, and grows in this table of important container terminals all across the Baltic. On the next slide, what was mentioned by Mr. Deputy Mayor and also by Karolina, we are the leader. We as Starter, we are the leader of Pomeranian Smart Specialization #1, which is not the whole business, but which are technologies related to offshore port and logistics and transport businesses. Technologies related to this business is very familiar for, as Karolina said, for Gdańsk, Gdynia, and whole Pomerania region, because we are on the seashore, right, on the Bay of Gdańsk. So that's natural development, right? We support the initiatives how to combine this very traditional businesses, right, because they are very traditional regarding container and bulk cargo, and passengers also, because our ports also service passenger ferries to Scandinavia, to Finland, to Sweden, to Denmark. And from the other side, we try to build ecosystem around this very specific maritime tech businesses, right? And we try to build ecosystem around this. And we are also responsible for organizing events, trainings, which are for free or paid, different in many different shapes. This is our core business, what we do here. On the next slide, you will see also kind of equality programs we run for very traditional maritime industry. One of them is Women Build Ships Too. We are now working on the 3rd edition of this program, how to encourage leadership and professional skills for women working in the maritime logistics industry, in not only in Pomorskie region but also across Poland. Also treating this venture as a pattern to whole Central and Eastern European countries which have the access to the seas, right? We also started to cooperate with our Norwegian partners, which are pretty good, as you know, in this equality sphere. So this is becoming also a pretty international program on a pretty high standard. We would like to prepare some patterns which could be introduced in some other is in some other countries, in some other coastal cities, in some other coastal businesses across the Central and Eastern Europe. So pretty ambitious program, very interesting, and also, you know, journalists are very keen to write stories about this program, about women working and, you know, breaking the barriers within this businesses. So this is the other angle what we do within Starter. And then, of course, Seatech conference, that's the third edition under the name of Seatech, because earlier on we also organized technological conferences related to sea and to oceans and to blue economy. But under the logo of Seatech, it's the third edition. First one, and hopefully the last one, organized only online, of course, as Mr. Mayer said. We would be grateful and happy to host you, you know, physically here in Gdańsk. I hope that it would happen, you know, next year. We are more than keen to work and to prepare, you know, the next edition of this conference in a traditional way. So, and then of course we have the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. That's not only European Union, but this is a global phenomena, right? Fortunately, in Pomerania, which has to be said, 52% of energy, of production of the energy, is already comes from renewable energy sources. So in this respect, we are the leaders in Poland, that we know now how to use and how to manufacture, how to produce the clean renewable energy. And of course, 52% is pretty good result, but it's not an end, right? We still, with all the installations we will talk about today of offshore, of photovoltaic, of dealing with hydrogen, we would like to progress, to stay as a leader, but to progress in these numbers, right? Because some of some of the countries around Poland, especially in Scandinavia and Germany, are in front of us in this respect as well. And then regarding the Pomerania region itself, we are pretty, I would say, pretty well structured in three broad sustainable goals, sustainable development goals, which is circular economy. From academic point of view and from business point of view, resource efficient management, we are pretty high on that. Of course, we use the best examples from around the world. Renewable energy, not only offshore, primarily offshore, but also some other sources also coming from the sea and from water. And ecological fuel, electric and hydrogen, that will be the whole panel about this. And I'm really happy that our smaller port, smaller in terms of tonnage and of containers, but very modern, which is the port of Gdynia, which brands itself as a state-of-the-art technologically. They deal with electric fuel power, but also, with concrete steps towards hydrogen, which is very kind of a courageous way to show up on the competitive scene of ports. That they are smaller than Gdańsk, but they are pretty innovative and efficient in this very technologically advanced solutions. And then this would be the sum up of what I should say. Of course, having this opportunity, I need to thank you, the entire starter team for preparing this conference. Beata, Anya, Agnieszka, and Tomek for their efforts to organize this, and I'm really keen that this is kind of a new quick kickstart. What Mr. Mayer said, that we have a new deed just passed through our parliament regarding the offshore energy. So the practical solutions are needed now. The practical steps, the international cooperation to make this, this legal, let's say, possibilities real. So this is what we do, and we think already. This may be my last comment. We think already about the next year edition, which will be, of course, the fourth one, but focused also on the state-of-the-art technological solutions and of development of this renewable energy in the broader sense, also applicable to maritime industry. Thank you for participating. Thank you for accepting our invitation, and wishing you a fruitful and productive conference. Thank you.
Perfect, Tomasz. A big thank you for your presentation and for acquainting the whole world with what happens here in our beautiful region of Pomerania. Now we have a small change in the agenda. We are trying to get through our keynote speaker, but in the meanwhile, we will proceed with our startup session. And the aim of the startup session in the first and second segment is to get us fired up about technology. Yet not the gadgets you can buy on Amazon, Allegro, or AliExpress, but the heavy-duty stuff that means real business. And let's roll out with Wiktor Kidziak. Wiktor is an innovation coordinator at Spatial Computation Limited. He is also an architect of innovative solutions with experience at Arup London, specializing in the science and industry sector with a particular focus on augmented reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and generative design. Wiktor, if you could kindly augment our webinar. Is Wiktor with us?
Hello, yes.
Splendid.
It's a pleasure to join you today. I'm going to share my screen with you. Can you hear me? Yes. Hello?
Like you were standing beside me.
Okay, fantastic. And can you see my presentation?
Yep.
Is it okay? Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to start. Good morning again. I'd like to talk to you today about our successful cooperation with a large company, the Port of Gdańsk. We've been developing a solution for digitizing planning processes and built a working prototype of a digital twin. We've designed and programmed a virtual interactive model that enables our client to gather all the information about their assets and future investment and visualize it in an attractive three-dimensional way. The innovation of our solution is that it provides a cross-platform tool working on mobile and the web to access, manage, and visualize information that traditionally is stored on paper or in many different difficult to access files. Everything that is needed on a board meeting to discuss the future development of the investment or to show stakeholders the progress of works is now easily accessible by the team of Port Gdańsk in one place. The application opens up an interactive way of decision-making. We believe that adding the third dimension is the new form of planning and analyzing your investment in a collaborative way with your clients, partners, and employees. The application allows you to freely move around a huge 3D model on your iPad and find out insights about aspects that interest you most. It has integrated tools to measure distances, areas, and even depth of seabed in the exact spot that you choose. This modern tool in your hands has many benefits, ranging from carrying all your BIM model data, collaborating remotely together with your team on a single virtual model, to tracking, planning, and management processes. But I'm not going to tell you all about it today because due to the time constraints. So if you would like to find out more, let's have a chat. My name is Wiktor Kidziak, and I'm the director of Spatial Computation. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can find a link to my calendar and to my email. I have international experience in inspiring digital transformation in the industry, and I'm looking forward to have a conversation with you. Cheers.
Thank you, Wiktor. Impressive. I'm of the opinion we should bring more gamification to the port industry. Hopefully we'll see that more in the future thanks to your solution as well. Okay, I've got intel that our keynote speaker is online, so please let me introduce Lone Repien-Thomsen. Lone, whose educational background is in design and communication management from the Copenhagen Business School, has been for the past 9 years working for the Maritime Development Center, first as coordinator and then as project manager and head of Hub Bornholm Technology and Innovation. Earlier, she worked as coordinator at Offshore Center Bornholm and as head of secretariat of the Copenhagen-based Transportens Innovationsnetværk, that is Transport Innovation Network. Lone, please tell us what's blowing in the wind.
Thank you very much. Can you give me a thumb up so I know you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. I'm sorry this little delayedness, but now it works, and I look so much forward to follow this event today. You have made a very special, a very interesting program, and actually it was good to hear Wiktor, because he just put words on what I like to actually to also talk about. So that was really great. So my headline is the future of the offshore wind, but I put underneath maritime and logistic innovation because in the end, I hope I can explain to you that working these two areas together, between that, we have some very interesting area for innovation, and I think that the Wiktor was an example on that. I'm trying to, yes. I'm working in the Maritime and Logistic Innovation Denmark. It's a cluster. We call it Malok, and we are all over Denmark, working together with companies, working together with our universities. And as I was earlier introduced, I have my daily life on Bornholm, and here I is working also as have the role of being a business developer for the offshore center Bornholm. So I think I have an understanding of the transport, the logistics, and also the offshore, and that's what I'll bring to you. I can see there is a headline missing here, but the topic of this was to say why is maritime and logistics interesting in relation to offshore wind. So first I will just peek a little into the maritime and logistics crystal ball, because we see some interesting things. There might be some change in the trade patterns. We think there will be more indirect trade in Europe that will also change the way we are doing things today. And it's also pointed out that there will be more traffic into the Baltic Sea. And still, what we always is up to is that everything must be cheaper and faster. And I think we also, if we look at ourselves, if we ask for a product today, we actually hope it will be here tomorrow. And to do that, the industry of logistics are really working hard these days to make all this happen. There is a change also, or changes also, to the maritime and logistics coming from the impact of technologies, and especially the digitalization, the automation. We see something new. It can be for the ship itself or for the truck itself. It is today with the Internet of Things, we get much more data from the ship than we had former. And if we can rely on these, if we can make these data good, we can maybe add them with other data that is new to us. And when we put these things together, we actually have some new management tool, and that's quite interesting. We will also see see that these data are linked to the shore. So instead of using papers, as was mentioned before, also. We're going to use data, and of course we have to be a little aware of cybersecurity. That's another story, but we'll see a lot of things happening here. It can be the port authority, it can be the classes, like talking to the ship in a new way, and also we can end up have some remote control when we're going into the port site, till example. So. One area we know is safety. When we're going to have more traffic, we also have to focus on more safety, and definitely the digitalization will help us here with AI, VR, and all these very interesting things. Efficiency, optimization, it is a continuing going on, and definitely also here, digitalization will help us, and automation as well, and the same is with the sustainability. Okay, I can see some of my headlines away, but I'll try anyway. But if you think my screen look or my PDF look a little strange, there are actually some words, some more words, but I'll work through it anyway. So what I'm here to say is, compared to the offshore wind, the maritime and logistics play a very interesting, but also a double role. One role is that they are going to be a very, very big market for the renewable energy. I found some figures saying that 30% of the energy consumed in EU is related to the transport sector. We think that we'll look into a massive investments in grids and in the energy infrastructure. And also we have to find out what kind of energy is needed. Where is it probably to use electricity directly? Is it hydrogen? I know you are going to talk about that later. Is it ammonia, or how are we going to convert, not how to, but we are going to need some new way of using the electricity. So that was one big role that the maritime and logistics have. It is the market itself. Another big role is that the maritime and logistics are linked, and a very costly one, in the value chain of an offshore wind farm. And that's from the development and to the decommissioning, and that's spent over like 30 years. I have an earlier report stated that about 20% of the cost of a wind farm actually was related to logistics. So this is an area that is good to look into. So summing up, looking at the maritime and logistic industry for its single, we can say we know that there will be big changes coming. And that is both in regard to the physical design of ships, ports, trucks, but definitely also to the management, and then not at least the whole infrastructure. So going into the offshore wind, the European Commission has stated that between 240 and 450 gigawatt of offshore wind power is needed by the 2050 to keep the temperature rise below 1.5 Celsius degree. This is a lot. And electricity will represent at least 50% of the total energy mix in 2050, and 30% of the future electricity demand will be supplied by offshore wind. To do that, I have 4 points I'd like to explain. The first one is, and now I see I missed some words. The first one is it needs, the whole industry really have to scale up. And some are talking about that, I mean, nearly they have to involve 6 times just to be near what they need to do. So there will be a massive scale up in the work of the offshore and in the wind farms. If we see below, just to make the picture of what is a wind farm, we have a phase where we have all the development, then we have a phase 2, it's installation, commissioning, and then the phase 3, and that is like for 25 years or something, it's operation and maintenance, and then we have the decommissioning phase. And what you can see here on the small picture is that since 2010, there have been a triple of the average size of the turbine, and that is a lot. And what does that mean? Well, the good thing is we need less turbines, but they also get very big and bigger. And that requires very heavy lifting gears, handling material. It also means that it's difficult to use road for transporting these things. Then the seaway is better to use. If I look at the industry and go just a bit back, around 2014 or something, we had a statement in Denmark saying we need to do a cost reduction on 40% to lower the price of the wind energy. And if you think of the business that you are in and think you had to lower your cost 40%, that's actually a lot. So how did they do that? And they actually did. Of course, one of the things, as I just explained, the turbines getting bigger. There was a lot of innovation technologies, lessons learned, all ways to be on the run. How can we do this better? Can we change something? And then there is a very strong relation between the industry in Denmark and in the whole value chain. So also suppliers were helping us say, okay, what can we do to make this statement come true? Because it is a benefit for all of us that we still have a wind industry in Denmark. And they succeeded very well. And there is one thing that is very important. They succeeded without slacking on safety issues. And let me just be with that word for many, the safety. Safety is the key word in offshore wind. It is in the processes, it's in the products, it's everywhere. It's when you go on a site and whatever you do, you always have this safety in mind. And if you don't think that you have to do this or that is not necessary, you can do what you used to do, I just warn you, you will be out of business very fast. So take this word safety very, very serious, because it is serious. It's a serious game. Okay, so when we have to scale up, I just thought it could be interesting to see this picture, because this is where we are. We see a lot of areas north of Poland. We also have some here south of Bornholm, and right now we are building the Kriegers Flak. It has a capacity of 605 megawatt. It's 72 turbines. That is, and we are halfway with that now. But you can also see here in the North Sea, it's going to really to grow. Great Britain have a lot of parks already. Holland, Belgium, Germany are very active as well. And this is only for, I took the piece from us, but of course, if you look outside Europe, we have a lot of activity, and that's also why it's going to be some busy years in front of us. Actually, I just want to dig just one little piece into some practical things, because I think actually this is a very amazing industry. The simple picture is that we have a foundation, then we have a TP piece just below water, the yellow one you can see out on the water. Then comes the towers, the blades, and then the cell. You have cables going to the transition, and then cables from here into to shore. So one practical thing, just to imagine how amazing this industry is, you should think that you're out on an installation vessel, you jacked up, and I think something around 100 meters or maybe 120, you are having a crane taking one blade, it's 90 meter long, and you have to click that on the nacelle like some piece of Lego, and they can do that. And that is so amazing. If you dig into this, I think you should go onto YouTube, find some videos, try to see what they do. It's really amazing what they can do, and how this industry is developed with very special techniques. So just a little peek into the practical world. So number two, I like to say there's a need of space at sea. Because if we have to develop all these parks, we also have to be aware other industries also like to enjoy the sea. There will be a sea space planning. There are environmental issues to take care of. And then the pioneers of the offshore, they are still continue. This is like a never-ending story. They are still building, can we do this in a new way? And today they are testing floating turbines. It means that you can go out in water for deep and 60 to 100 meters. And this gives us a new perspective of where to have or where to have these wind farm parks. And they are testing it in Norway right now. So there will still be a lot of innovation, and I think also that it is necessary. Good. Then I like to, this is bullet number 3, I like to focus, give you a focus on where we are today. So we started out thinking how to generate sustainable energy out on the water. And that they can do. And they started out having like a park, and you have electricity going on shore. And then the history is that, or the evolution, you can say where we are today. So today it's not that much about how to generate the sustainable energy, because that the industry know a lot about. The big issue is today the infrastructure. How can we connect more parks? How can we make more parks connect to more countries? How can we share this energy? So the point is, when the wind is blowing, we get energy, and we of course like to use it. Can we convert it into something else that we can save or store? That we could not do before. That is you can say the major issues right now. So distribution of energy, changing energy into a new kind of fuels. And then the fourth and the last thing, sustainability is a key, and I quote, sustainability to the wind power industry's license to operate. And companies have already set ambitious goals to reduce the environmental and social impact throughout their supply chains. Of course, an industry working with sustainability have to take its own medicine. And there is a lot of now, you can say, innovation and trying to figure out what do we do when we are decommissioning a wind park. So we don't end up having big graveyards with turbines and with blades and so on. How can we reuse it? Can we do something that we can expand the life of a park? That is something that they are working very much on. And then also back to the logistics, the supply chain, because it will also be a part of being sustainable, is what kind, how do the supply chain work in this field? For example, if you have a cruise ship going out to a park, Is it on normally marine diesel, or is this actually powered by electricity? So the story of, you can say, taking one's own medicine, I think they really take serious in the offshore business. So this is my ending slides. What I like to and have tried to is to say, okay, we know a lot of interesting things are happening in the maritime industries with logistics. There's a lot of new technologies coming in, and working with that to match also the offshore industry, because some of these things that we are working with in logistics and so on is actually something they need to do also in the offshore industry. So between these two sectors, there is a very interesting area of where can we bring new innovation into it, and we have a joint focus on sustainability and the green infrastructure, because it's not something that someone is creating and then someone is using later. We have to develop together, and doing that, I think there also will be a lot of interesting development in that area. So I think that was the words for me. Sector coupling in between, there will be a lot for us to do. My last remark is that I decided not to overload you with figures and numbers. I just want to give you this picture of, and I think that is where the starter, the incubators are really good to see. Okay, learn about the new technologies and what can we bring into these two sectors, and between them, here is something very interesting to work further on. Thank you. That was the words for me.
Tusen tak, Lone, veldig bra. We have a couple of minutes to shoot some questions at you. But first, let me just supplement your presentation with a few, out of top of my head, developments going from across Denmark. So we have, for example, the Copenhagen-Malmö port. Since 10 years, their cargo volumes have been either flat or decreasing. So the port authority wants to find new streaks of revenue. They were big on cruise. Copenhagen was the biggest one in the Baltic, but well, the pandemic hit the fan and pretty much killed off the cruise industry for the time being. But Copenhagen-Malmö port is investigating the setup of infrastructure for carbon dioxide capture. So that's a thing. Now we have the Danish shipping and logistic company DFDS. They want to invest in a hydrogen run RoPax cargo and passenger ferry. We have the Swedish Alfa Laval, but they have a testing facility in the Danish Aalborg, and they are putting new alternative fuels to the test to see that we have a big hype about hydrogen and ammonia, and they want to put it to the test and see whether it is really a credible option. And of course, we have the Danish port of Esbjerg, the biggest one on the North Sea, and we had the pleasure together with Starter to guest their chief executive, Dennis Juul Persson, in March, and to give you a rough impression of the port of Esbjerg, data for 2019 say that about 80% of the offshore wind capacity installed in Europe at that time was shipped from that port, and it's more than 1,500 megawatts of offshore wind turbine components. So that's massive. And a very important thing which Dennis said about logistics, wind logistics, is that because the components are getting bigger, it makes less and less sense to have all the components produced in the hinterland, because imagine shipping by truck, the pillars, the blades, which are 100 meters long, it doesn't make very much sense. So they are setting up, the companies catering to the offshore wind industry, they are setting up production facilities inside ports. So that's a leaf to take from SBX's book if you are interested in developing offshore wind industry wherever in the Baltic or in Europe. But and one more thing, judging by the statistics of Danish seaports, you can clearly see that the policy pays off, because there's a steady decrease of coal handling in parallel to the increasing output of offshore wind farms catering to the needs of Danish industries, households, the whole electricity consumption. My question, Lone, to you would be about the safety, especially the maintenance. You talk a lot about using data, but is the maintenance currently on the installed turbines carried by hand according to manuals and intervals set, or do you have the whole offshore wind farms connected to, say, the Internet of Things, having monitoring devices, aka predictive maintenance, so that you can react in advance should something go wrong before the manual says that you should check this and that?
Yes, there is a lot of Internet of Things out on such a park. And they do exactly what you say. They are, and that's where the developers have been for a while, to make sure what kind of data you get in, and also they learned about the maintenance, when to go out there. They can predict, is it necessary to go out this month, or could we wait next month, and so on. So that they are running very strong on that part. One thing that I think is interesting, it is the use of drones, and that is coming a lot into the area. They are using them now, but I think that drones in the future will be developed. So former, you had to send a person out to look over a blade, to see if there were anything going wrong, scratches or something that you need to repair. And today you can send drones out and have this look. But I also can imagine that one day we set drones out on there, and they actually like click on a blade, and they are running on the blade, and they are taking a different kind of information back to the operator, and that will definitely be more. As it's about price. It is expensive to put a person out there to hang down from a wing to see if everything is in order, and as again, safety. It is much better to send out a drone. It is a technical thing. It's not a human. So the things like that is developing. Yes.
Great. Has the pandemic changed anything in Denmark's rollout of the energy transition, the way you work and invest in new projects, or carry out the ones that are currently in the pipeline?
No, there's been no changing for that. But of course, there has been a very focused work. If people are going out to see the park or going out on the side, you also have checking that you don't have corona, because it will really be a problem. And we also gather people from many places, from Great Britain, from Poland, from Ukraine, from many places. And of course, the traveling has been more difficult through the corona. But let me say, the show must go on, and it did.
You said the show must go on. Now, Bear with me, another question. That was just a segue to the third question. Is offshore wind energy in Denmark set in stone? I mean that, is the society at large and all the political parties more or less 100% convinced that the future of Denmark is in wind? Whether you are from the right side of the political scene or the left side, you are talking one voice that yes, we want the green transition in general and investing and doing it through wind on and offshore in particular.
Yes, everybody wants this green transition, and I think all the political areas are working. Some think that it's not working fast enough. That's another thing. But they all go for the same direction, definitely. But it's not only offshore wind. We also talk a lot of this power to X, of course. But can we also use the solar, and can we do other things? So they are looking at many things comes to the green transition. But this is positive, and Denmark is definitely working for it in all political areas, specters, yes.
Yes, I can testify to that because I remember writing an article about the Anholt offshore wind farm some 7 or 8 years ago, and it started with that there was a green light on the side of the politicians, and then the whole thing was built in 1.5 years, which was impressive, which was rapid, and it's a lesson for others that if you have everything in place, in check, you can build what was at the time the Baltic's biggest offshore wind farm, 400 megawatts, if I'm not mistaken. Great, Lana, thank you very much again for your presentation, and please stay with us and enjoy the reminder of the webinar.
Thank you very much. I like to. Yes?
Thank you. So, ladies and gents, we are coming back to the first startup session. Now the mic goes to Pelixar's chief exec and co-founder Marcin Swystun. He's also CEO and founder of Outpost One Entertainment, OP1 Rental, a Sony professional independent certified expert, and film commercial director. Marcin has been involved in many R&D drone projects, among many search and rescue or the creation of numerical 3D maps of air pollution. Marcin, lift off.
Here, I guess. Do you hear me?
We can see you, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Okay, nice to be here. I will tell you a few words about the solutions which we have for ports and harbors in our company Pelixar. This is the joint stock company, and we produce a solution based on robotics and drones. So we'll be talking about drones for just a few minutes. I will try to make it short because we've got only 5 minutes. So it will be going quite fast. I'll be talking about aerial monitoring system. This is one of our solution because we produce quite a lot of solution, but especially for port and harbors, we've got aerial security monitoring, aerial environmental monitoring, and aerial technical inspection. First, let's go from Port Gdańsk. For Port Gdańsk, we're doing the LMB project, which is aerial security monitoring. We developed the system based on the drone, which help to patrols, interventional patrols, and preventive patrols. We've got the special box for that, which is the drone hangar, so the drone can fly itself with landing and starting, and nobody have to take care of it during the procedure. I will go because I've got like 13 pages here, so I have to go pretty fast. Going to Port Gdynia, we've got in the port the project called LSM, Area Monitoring System. This is the system consists of special dedicated multi-purpose drone developed for also intervention patrols and preventive patrols, but we're doing all kind of different tests. And also the drone has the module for the atmospheric pollution measurements. So we have developed by us sensors on it, so we can measure the pollution in the air in the harbor. Of course, there is a lot of tests for the mobile applications, for the checking the quality of the all kind of signal in the harbor, so in the infrastructure, because this is harsh environment. And yeah, let's go further. Port of Gdańsk, another project which we are developing, aerial environmental monitoring. This is about developing the Spatial drone which remote water scoop, so we can measure the pollution of the water in a different harsh environment. So we can check the water in different parts of the harbor. And we're doing research on the correlation between multispectral image from the multispectral cameras and water samples. So we have to develop lots of methodology and standards of verifications, and the project is going on right now. The next scheduled project is LDT, and this is the project we'll be starting just right now. This is aerial technical inspection. It's about the drone for the inspection systems. It's a dedicated platform for the technical infrastructure inspections and all kind of like insurance damage liquidation documentations and things like that. So there are plenty of things which are going on in this project. Each project consists of many tests, many developing structures of the flying platforms. So there are lots of work for it, but like when you're doing it from the air, you cannot do it in the same way in any other methodology. So something about the solutions, we're doing many robotics, and our the main project we are working right now is aerial search and rescue. It's about search and rescue drones which help people in water, and it consists of artificial intelligence which find people in water and help them, giving them some safety belt and towing them to the safe ground. What I can tell you more, all kind of the drone systems are ready to work, easy to modify, easy to service, and heavy durable. So these are special drone systems which are especially for using in the harsh environment, especially like ports and harbors. We get a few prizes for that. We get them for as a best startup of each year, and more projects are coming still on. So we think there will be next one as well. Yeah, and that was pretty fast. So if you have any questions, I'm ready to help you with that.
Thanks, Marcin. Much obliged. We have to go according to the agenda, but please feel free to shoot emails at Marcin to get to know closer his company and the solutions they are offering. Marcin, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Now, ladies and gents, there are two presentations on the table, and we'll start with Siamak Jalali. Siamak, a master's in business administration from Linköping's Universitet, has been part of the transport world since 2012 when he joined Trafikverket, the Swedish transport administration. He afterwards jumped over to European Rail Infrastructure Managers to return to Trafikverket, where he was responsible for the annual business planning and budgeting process of major projects. Siamak then transitioned to the Swedish Ministry of Transport and Innovation. In his current role as policy officer at the European Commission's Directorate General Mobility and Transport, he acts as advisor to Professor Kurt Bodevik, the European coordinator of the Motorways of the Sea program. He is also engaged in advancing the realization of the Trans-European Transport Network. Siamak, varsågod, vi väntar. Eld och lågor för din presentation. Lycka till!
Dzień dobry, dziękuję. Thank you very much. I'm very happy for that gracious presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished friends, I hope you all are all doing well and are healthy. So I don't need to introduce myself any further. I'm from DG Move in Brussels, the Commission, and I am the advisor of the coordinator, the European coordinator for the Motorways of the Sea, Kurt Bodevik. I would also like to take this opportunity before I start to thank the organizers for inviting me to this event, and I look forward to a good and interesting exchange with you. So, the topic of my presentation today is about the Green Deal, but before I cover that, I'd like to spend just a couple of minutes briefly with a background on what the Motorways of the Sea is. So the Motorways of the Sea program, with its focus on short sea shipping routes, maritime links, and associated maritime infrastructure, is the maritime pillar of the Trans-European Transport Network and its relating funding instrument, the Connecting Europe Facility. It builds on the core and comprehensive networks of the European ports and logistics centers, and the connections to the core network corridors of the Trans-European Transport Network. And as such, the Motorways of the Sea is well placed to support the European shipping industry and the ports, the European ports. The program prioritizes the full integration of maritime ports and maritime transport operations in the logistics chain. And it also concentrates on freight flows and on the sea-based routes, and thus to reduce road congestion as well as increasing the connectivity between the member states. So that's very briefly. Now, if we were to look at some figures, the Trans-European Transport Network consists of a large network. It's namely 335 ports. And the maritime sector is the most critical transport sector, and you would be surprising if I, as the advisor for the Motorways of the Sea coordinator, wouldn't say that, but roughly 80% of all the goods are actually transported by sea. And in terms of tons per kilometer traveled, shipping is the most efficient and cost-effective transport mode. So it has a great impact on the European economy as such. Now, if we are just to look at short sea shipping, it accounts for about 65% of all cargo transiting through EU ports, or 2.5 billion tons of cargo and more than 400 million passengers that embark or disembark from European ports every year. So as we can see, it's quite significant numbers. Now, the European coordinator of the Motorways of the Sea, Professor Kurt Bodevik, published his latest detailed implementation plan in July last year. So that's his work plan. And it lays out the priorities for the coming 18 to 24 months. We have just started with the process for the upcoming one. But in this latest work plan, he introduced a vision of a European maritime space. And this European maritime space vision is resting on three pillars. The first pillar is the sustainable maritime space, and it addresses the objectives in the European Green Deal, as well as the new sustainable and smart transport strategy that was published and presented in December 2020. And this means, for instance, a higher efforts in innovation and research for non-fossil fuels and new engine types in the maritime sector. The second pillar addresses the seamless European maritime space. And here the main idea is to ensure seamless transport flows on the entire TEN-T, as I alluded to previously in my speech about the connectivity with the rest of the network. And here we're looking to reinforce these efforts, both on sea and land. And for this reason, it is key to develop proper hinterland connections and last mile connections in order to make maritime transport a competitive and more sustainable mode of transport for the industry and the logistic chains. And finally, as regards the smart and interoperable European maritime space, we're talking about digitalization. And it is, of course, a key guiding principle for the whole transport sector, not just for maritime transport. And it's about ensuring more efficient transport flows, especially now, as we can see during the pandemic, that there has been a need to have more automated systems or systems where you have less human interaction in some parts of the value chain. And the crisis has definitely accelerated some of these efforts in the industry. So, jumping onto the Green Deal, most of you probably already know what it is about, but it is our plan, the Commission's plan, to make the EU economy more sustainable. It was presented in December 2019, and it provides an action plan that will both boost the efficient use of resources by moving to a clean and circular economy, and to restore biodiversity and cut pollution in Europe. And the plan outlines investments needed and financing tools that are available. And it explains how to ensure a just and inclusive transition towards the new type of economy that we're trying to build. And the EU aims to be a climate neutral economy by 2050. So it's a very, very ambitious goals and targets. Now, as a result of the Green Deal, we also have the Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy, which was presented in December 2020, as I mentioned earlier, together with an action plan of 82 initiatives. And this strategy lays out the foundation for how the EU transport system can achieve its green and digital transformation and become more resilient, not in general only, but also for future crises. And as I outlined in the European Green Deal, this will result in a 90% cut in emissions by 2050. And this will be delivered then by a smart, competitive, safe, accessible, and affordable transport system. And that sounds very beautiful. So I will try to be as concrete as I can. However, all transport modes need to become more sustainable. It's not just the maritime sector or the road sector, etc. And we are seeing developments, of course, that electric cars or vehicles are becoming more and more common. And there are also developments for alternative fuels and in the aviation industry, etc. So there are milestones set for the years 2030, 2035, 2050. And transport, when we just look at maritime transport, one of the key objectives in this sustainable and smart mobility strategy is that transport by inland waterways and short sea shipping will increase by 25% by 2030 and by 50% by 2050 compared to the levels of 2015. So as we can see, it is quite it's a monumental task. Now, as we can see on this slide, there are a number of funding instruments in place to assist us, and I will try to break it down for you. We are in general in a very difficult situation as we are both trying to become more sustainable, which is something that is crucial for us and for the future of the planet. But we're also trying to recover from the impacts of the ongoing pandemic. And global trade has contracted more now than during the crisis in 2008 to 2009. And the recovery is likely to be long, but the needs are immediate. We need impacts here and now. Now, there are several instruments that will be used for Europe's economy. One is, for instance, the Next Generation EU. It includes the instruments of the European, the Recovery and Resilience Facility, Horizon Europe, which is the framework program for research and innovation, and then InvestEU. And in this context, we must also mention, of course, the Green Deal and the Connecting Europe Facility, which are highly relevant. And this is just to give you an overview. I won't go into detail here, but some of these instruments are working simultaneously to address different parts of the same challenge, namely infrastructure and sustainability. And I will give you some examples. For instance, the Connecting Europe Facility has a 60% budgetary climate earmarking. So of the budget that is on the table, 60% of this must go to climate-related actions. If we look at the Cohesion Fund and the European Regional Development Fund, we have a 30% budgetary climate earmarking. The Recovery and Resilience Facility has 37 budgetary climate earmarking, and then the InvestEU has a 60% climate earmarking under its sustainable infrastructure window priority. So as we can see, it's not just money going to traditional brownfield or greenfield investments in roads, but actually a lot of money is being directed towards more sustainable means. If we're to look at the Connecting Europe Facility, I thought it might be interesting just to give you some numbers for the Baltic Sea with regards to the motorways of the sea in the Baltic Sea basin. And there are many core and comprehensive maritime ports. We have 89 in total. And being Swedish, I'm happy also to know that this is one of the sea basins in Europe that has the highest standards when it comes to alternative fuels infrastructure and sustainable maritime links with alternative fuels and also zero-emission ferries, even though, of course, more can and should be done. But as you can see, we have 37 co-funded projects with 804 million euros of grants from the Connecting Europe Facility in December last year. And that the majority of the funding, 570 million euros approximately, was granted to 16 actions upgrading the core maritime ports in Poland only. So there is some support on the ground. Now, if we are to look at what type of projects, it's perhaps not offshore wind farms, etc., because that is not what the Connecting Europe Facility transport envelope mainly is focusing on. But there is a lot of projects and money spent on improving the ports' hinterland connectivity and their competitiveness, and thus also their sustainability. As regards other measures to boost the sustainability of the maritime sector, I can mention the following existing and ongoing initiatives without going into details again because our time is limited. We do have the FuelEU Maritime legislative proposals on maritime fuels, which aims at accelerating the uptake of sustainable alternative fuels in European ports. We also have the revised Renewable Energy Directive, which entered into force in December 2018. And it aimed at keeping EU as a global leader in the renewables and more broadly helping the EU to meet its emissions reduction commitments under the Paris Agreement. And then we have the ongoing revision of the Directive of Deployment of Alternative Fuels, the AFID, which sets requirements for greatly expanding the EU's network of recharging and refueling stations for all alternative fuels, and not just for the maritime sector, but for cars as well, or roads, I should say, road transport. And then, as it's needless to say, maritime projects will, of course, continue to be funded or co-funded through the Connecting Europe Facility. That was just agreed on in the trilogues a few weeks ago, and which will enter into force later this spring. Now, the maritime transport sector forms a big part of the intra-European transport system. It contributes to the efforts to reduce the overall external environmental and social costs from transport. That is clear. So the creation of the European maritime space that I mentioned earlier will help to reinforce the maritime pillar in the future TEN-T, because as you probably also know, there is an ongoing revision of the Trans-European Transport Network regulation. But with that said, more attention is still needed for short sea shipping, onshore power supply, so that ships can embark and plug their vessels into the port's power grid in order to not consume heavy fuels while not being in service. And short sea shipping can, of course, contribute to the modal shift from roads to more sustainable transport. But then we also have the hinterland connectivity that I mentioned earlier. You still need to have a very good connectivity with the hinterland in order to make shipping and short sea shipping attractive. So it's a mix of things in order to keep this mode of transport, or to reinforce this mode of transport as a viable alternative for the future. Then I must also underline that a technology neutral approach is necessary for us when it comes to alternative fuels, because air and waterborne transport have greater decarbonization challenges in the next decades, because there is a lack of market-ready zero-emission technologies in some cases. It is also difficult for some ports or some shipping lines to invest in certain type of infrastructure vessels when they do not know what the standards or what the requirements will be in a decade from now, given also that the vessels have long life cycles. So this is also a factor that we need to weigh in. And of course, these sectors are subject to major competition, international competition, which also makes it necessary for them to consider when they invest or reinvest that they create something that doesn't exclude international non-European partners. So I'm approaching the end of my presentation. If we look at the outlook, what I can say as a conclusion is that the greenhouse gas emissions, obviously, from transport sector have increased, and they now represent as much as a quarter of the total EU emissions, which is very high. And therefore, investments are needed in all modes of transport, not just the maritime transport. But when we speak of maritime transport, it is a plethora of things. It's renewal of fleets, it is alternative fuels infrastructure, and also, as I mentioned earlier several times, last mile connectivity or hinterland connectivity, to have a good connectivity between the ports and the rest of the trans-European transport network. And what is clear is that grants from the European Union will not be enough. There will need to be a mobilization of resources from all stakeholders for this to move ahead. And since I know we're on a tight schedule, I thank you for your attention. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with me if you have any question. I forgot to add my email address on the last slide, but I would be happy to provide it to the organizers or in the chat if that is of any help. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to get in touch. And even if I might not be able to answer, I can get you in touch with the right person who can. Thank you very much.
Underbart. Ett stort tack för presentationen, Siamak. Var snäll och håll med oss för resten av vår evenemang. We have, say, 2-3 minutes for one single question, which is a shame because I would like to ask you about detaxing onshore power supply, the TNT and the United Kingdom, the technology neutral approach to next generation fuels, but let me stick to ports. I'm a port guy. The Connecting Europe Facility funds, and especially the Motorways of the Sea program, especially in the light of comprehensive ports. According to the European Seaport Organization, only a couple of % of the whole CEF envelope goes to seaports, and despite the projects you have listed, comparing to road or especially rail, ports are, in their view, somewhat neglected. And now, where are the barriers for ports to get more funds? Is it the whole process a bit too complicated, or maybe the finger should be pointed at ports that they should try a bit more to get those EU funds?
Thank you for the question. I think it's an excellent question. I think the answer will be a combination of things. To begin with, just a caveat: I'm still quite new, so I've learned this problem. I've learned about this problem very recently. But I mean, one part of the issue is that we need to simplify the eligibility criteria for maritime transport and for ports, and this is something that we're considering in view of the new detailed implementation plan, which will be presented later this year, towards the end of this year. And of course, this is something that then resonates with us in the ongoing TEN-T revision. Now, since the proposal hasn't been made yet in the Council, I cannot really go into details on the revision itself. But what I can say is that this is something that we're definitely aware of, and that we think should be addressed, because it is at this, it needs to be simplified, and it needs to be made more accessible, given that ports are energy hubs today. They are also, as one of your previous presenters mentioned, there is production going on inside port areas, and they're also cross-border points. So they play a very, very important role strategically, but also for the European economy. Having said that, it is also, and this is maybe something that is important to underline, what ends up in the priorities of the Connecting Europe facility is very much also depending on what the member states themselves plea for. So when the Commission presents a work program with priorities for it, the Connecting Europe facility calls for proposals, the member states will vote on what should be in there. And maybe there could be more support from the member states with regards to maritime transport. We do have some support from typical maritime nations. As you can guess, some of them are very dependent on trade and maritime transport. But if we're speaking of sustainability as a European concept and a global concept, not just European one, then there could be more support, let's say, for the greening of the whole sector.
Okay, great. We'll have to leave it there. Once again, a big thank you for your participation. Please stick around.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. The second speech will be delivered by Wiljan van Laarhoven. Wiljan, who studied research and management in the field of leisure at Breda University of Applied Sciences, subsequently worked as advisor tourism and manager international trade, then as external project manager, but since 1998 he has been running his own joint prominent project management. The company specializes in the development of transnational EU-funded projects that focus on energy efficiency, carbon reduction, climate change, circular economy, and biodiversity. Wiljan, kindly please deliver the presentation at your leisure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for now. Thank you for they contribute to this conference. As I said, my name is Wiljan van Laarhoven. I try to see how to proceed, how it works. I go to the next slide, I think, or not. Oh, yes. So I'm trying to. I will give a presentation about EU funding possibilities in the next, let's say, 7 years. I give you some priorities. When you want to build up a project, some tips and tricks. Well, this is how you can see me. That's a quick one. What can we say in general about EU grants? Well, normally, if you are not, let's say, familiar with EU grants, programs have a life cycle in general of 7 years. The programs, they follow the European budgets, which will always be renewed in 7 years, and we are now in the period 21-27. But a lot of programs are still in preparation. There are and these programs, they follow the EU funding period as mentioned before. And first calls of some programs will start in 21, but the majority we think will start in 22 because they still need to be approved by member states and the European Commission. There are also programs which have a continuous call system, like the LIFE program Horizon Europe, already mentioned in the previous presentation. Well then, what about EU grants? Because you hear a lot of stories from people who are involved in European projects or in the preparation of European projects. And of course, there are always, let's say, disadvantages if you need to have extra funding possibilities. Because working with Europe and European projects, it's quite a lot of paperwork to prepare a project, to prepare an application to submit. It takes time to prepare a project, especially when you need to work cross-border or transnational. You need to get familiar with the European language, the jargon, because as mentioned before, in the Green Deal, you have ways how to express and what goals and objectives there are, what results they want to achieve. So you need to become familiar with this language. There is quite a lot of administration to justify costs, to claim costs, to have progress reports, etc. And you need to be patient when you are going to prepare a project, because it takes quite some time to prepare. I will come back to that later. But on the other hand, when you are working in Europe and together with other countries, other partners, it brings you new ideas. You can look, let's say, in the garden of another country, of another partner who has also ideas about solutions for, let's say, development, for restructuring ports, etc. So you can bring home these ideas for your own benefit. You can find new cooperation partners in other countries and in other regions. Besides that, there are, and that's often the main goal, you can find new funding possibilities for, let's say, new developments in your own company or your own organization. And second, last but not least, personal challenges. If you're working in a company or an organization already years, then working in a European context can give you a new challenge in your career. I want to focus, let's say, this presentation on three main, let's say, steps to come to a European funding project. And the first one is focus on priority. So if you have a challenge in your organization and you want to apply for European funding, then it's important to find a link to what's important for Europe. Well, and in Europe, we now have, let's say, 5 main objectives you can link your project to. And we saw it already in the Green Deal presentation. The first one is Europe is aiming for a smarter Europe, aiming for a greener Europe, aiming for a more connected Europe, aiming for a more social Europe, and aiming for a European closer to the citizens. Which means that you need to link with one of these objectives if you want to start a project. And you can come back to that later when we are talking about the program. Briefly said, the 5 objectives, a smarter Europe, where can you think of? Because then based on the main objective, you have more specific objectives. And within the smarter Europe objective, well, more specific objectives are growth and competitiveness of small and medium-sized companies, digital transformation, innovation, circular economy, and climate change. These are, let's say, topics within smarter Europe. When we talk about greener Europe, low carbon energy, blue investments, sustainable management, natural resources, circular economy, adaptation of climate change. These are aspects in when you look for greener projects. A more connected Europe. This is also very important for ports. mobility, energy and regional and ICT connectivity, sustainable transport, smart energy networks. The fourth objective is Social Europe, is focusing on lifelong learning, social inclusion, health and social innovation. Tourism is also becoming again a part of European programs. And a Europe closer to citizens, more focusing on urban and rural coastal areas. So these are the 5 main objectives in Europe, and they all come back in European funding programs. So the tips and tricks is, if you have an idea, a challenge in your organization, and you're looking for European funding, always try to look to your challenge from another point of view. Sometimes, if you look at it from another angle, it might become very interesting to link it to one of the 5 objectives or more specific objectives within the priorities. And then, secondly, can you justify your project focus? If you've made a choice, can you describe, can you justify your project focusing on that specific objective? And then, secondly, use EU language in your policy documents. If you are going to renew policy documents in your organization, it's always good to integrate European priority documents to refer to EU documents, because then you already have a link to EU funding programs. So the first focus is focus on priority. Then, okay, if you know, okay, my focus is on one of these items, you can do some research to programs. What kind of programs might be interesting for me? And if you look to the funding structure of 21-27, you can, let's say, explain it quite easy that there are 3 kind of funding schemes in Europe at the moment. These are, let's say, you have 3 funding trees. The first tree is the structure and investment funds. And these are programs which are more or less decentral managed from secretariats all over Europe. Then you have the thematic funds. These are, let's say, the funds which are managed from Brussels. And then, and together for these 2 kind of programs, there is a total budget of 1,000 billion euros available in the next 7 years. But due to the corona, we also have now an extra, let's say, funding tree available, which is the Corona Recovery Fund, the Next Generation EU Fund, which also contains 750 billion euros for funding or funding possibilities for companies, organizations, for investments. And if you want, I just give you one brief overview of the programs which are available. It's not 100% covering, but it gives you, let's say, an overview of main programs in Europe which are running or start running in the next years. As mentioned before, a lot of programs are still under construction and will be finalized this year, I think. Well, we have the Interreg program, cross-border. I will focus a little bit more on that because I have a lot of experience in Interreg programs. We have the EADF programs. We have Europe Urban Initiative. We have Social Fund. We have Rural Development funding. These are the structured funds which are more or less managed through Europe. So it might be possible that you have, let's say, a cross-border program between Poland and Russia, or Poland and Germany. I come from Holland. We have a cross-border programs with Belgium and Germany, and the secretariat of these programs are in Belgium in this case, or in Germany, or in Lille. We have management authorities of certain programs. So structural and investment funds are often also managed by in regions of Europe. The thematical funds, as I said before, are managed from Brussels. And there we have Horizon Europe, Life, Creative Europe, Digital Europe, Erasmus. So Horizon and Life could be of interest for ports. And the structure investment funds, all of them could be interesting for ports. Again, look at the priority and then you can see what priorities are in these programs. Then we have the recovery fund, which is, say, an extra funding possibility due to the corona. We have React EU, which is running at the moment in many countries. We have just transition funds, which are available, and we have the recovery and resilience facility. Once again, it's not 100% covering all the European funding possibilities, because then I need, I don't know how much pages, but these are, let's say, the main programs. So, and if you go to the programs, I would like to focus a little bit on Interreg at the moment for now. As you can see, you have a lot of cross-border programs Interreg cross-border programs in Europe. You see there are several where Polish regions are involved in. You see where France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium. So you can see a lot of cross-border programs all over Europe. And all of these programs, they have, let's say, sustainability, climate change as one of their priorities. So you can link to these programs if you have port-related projects. When you look to the Interreg B program, which are larger regions, there you also have different programs in Europe, all over Europe. You have the Northwest Europe program, you have the North Sea program, but you also have the Baltic Sea program, for instance. So here you have an overview of the different Interreg B programs in Europe. Again, they are focusing on smarter Europe, on social Europe, greener Europe. So again, in these programs, there are a lot of possibilities for port-related issues. And then we have the Interreg Europe, which is covering all over Europe, including Norway. Here we have still the UK as a partner, but we know the UK is out of the European Union, so they are not longer involved in Interreg Europe program. But again, this is a program focusing on complete Europe. Tips and tricks related to the choices of a program. So I just gave you an example of the Interreg program, but there are many programs and they all need to focus on one or two or three of the 5 objectives in Europe. Again, if you are going to search for a specific program, look at the challenge again. Look and try to look from the challenge from another point of view in a way that it fits within one of the programs. Give you one short example. If you are going to, let's say, need new lighting structure in your port, if you want to make it, if you want to develop it with LED lights or other smart solutions to make to be more to save lights and then to contribute to be more energy efficient and carbon reduction, then it becomes immediately an interesting topic for Europe. Well, you can search for programs, and then I give you an example with a link to Interreg Europe possibilities. You can look for kind of projects which already have been developed. You can have a look, and then you can look which programs offer possibilities for the topic you are aiming for. And then you can see what the funding possibilities are, 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%. That is different for each program. And important is, if you have more opportunities, so let's say you have 4 or 5 programs you can aim for, our advice is go for the program which is close to home. So which is easy to achieve, and that can be your ERDF or your cross-border program. And I will speed up. Focus on partnership. Well, sometimes it's important to see what kind of partnership is needed in your program. It can be local, regional, national, international. Some programs are international, so you need international cooperation. And then you can have governmental organizations as a partner, companies, knowledge institutes. That's more or less the combination of partnerships in your projects. The tips and tricks: don't go too far away from home to find partners. Go have a look in your international network. Look at sister organizations if they like to join you. Go to the program you are aiming for. There you have partner search tools. or visit a conference for a program where you often have a market where you can find partners, potential partners for your project. So if you are going to focus, if you are going to build a project, what are the steps? First, go for the priority you are aiming for, different options. Go for the program you're aiming for, different options. Choose a program close to home. Partner search. Don't look for partners in first instance far away, but if you can build a partnership close by with network partners, then do that. Think about lead partnership and project coordination, because that's an important one. Each project needs to be submitted by one partner on behalf of the complete partnership. That's the role of lead partner. It's an important role and it takes time. Furthermore, have a look if you need to have a first concept note preparation, or that you need to prepare a final bit immediately. More and more there are two-step approaches in programs. So you have a concept note, and then if it's approved, you go for the final bit. So it gives you, let's say, a stop to go and to decide to go or to continue or not. Be aware that it takes about 1 to 1.5 years to as a preparation period to prepare your project. So it's not something you can do in 2 months. It takes time. Then these are some EU-funded project websites, projects we have done, so you can have an idea what's possible. The first ones are related to 2 projects, the PEX project and the ISSU projects, 2 port-related projects. Within Interact program, we have prepared together with the Port of Oostende, so you can have a look what's happening there and to have ideas about possibilities. So that was my presentation, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Wiljan. Very interesting presentation, and I would love to talk with you more about the cultural perspective of international EU-funded projects. Are we one big loving family in the European Union, or are there certain, say, cross-border differences, bones of contention that stand in the way of making an international project as efficient as it could potentially be? But maybe that's a topic for another conference. Thank you very much again. Please stay with us for the remainder of the webinar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We are now moving to the power panel. Luckily, we have on board a few powerhouses who will do this debate a power of good. I'm more than convinced about that. First, please welcome Wim Stubbe. Wim, a master in law from the KU Leuven, started his career as legal advisor labor law, then worked as international project manager, as a consultant, as international relations advisor, and for the past 13 years for the Port of Oostende as business development manager. Wim is also associate founder of offshore wind ports platform at Wind Europe. In the years 1992-2015, he was part of the Flemish-Polish Chamber of Commerce, including as member of the management board. Next, we have Maciej Krzesiński. Maciej, whose education covers a bachelor's in accounting and finance, a master's in business administration and management, a postgrad in project management, and a black belt in Lean Six Sigma, finally a holder of an executive MBA, is currently in charge of the Port of Gdynia multi-million outer port mega project, having joined the seaport as director of marketing and international cooperation.
Hello.
The third man in power is Matthaus Wuczkowski. Matthaus, a graduate from the Leuphana University of Lüneburg, has been working for Niedersachsen ports for the past 5 years. His responsibilities range from strategic sustainability projects to the management of measures to promote resource and energy efficiency, as well as the promotion of the use of renewable energy in ports. He also oversees the company-wide environmental management as well as the implementation of national and transnational innovation projects.
Thank you very much.
Hi there, gentlemen. How are you feeling?
Hope things working.
Yeah, we can see you, we can hear you. Let's
Fantastic.
off. Let's start with Wim. Could you be so kind and share Oostende's story? Why the port had to reinvent itself in the first place? Why have you decided to go the offshore wind energy path? And how in detail did you do it over the years?
Well, let's say thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the introduction. I'm happy that we are all one big family in Europe. So I will respect the family traditions and have a little word about the Port of Oostende. Port of Oostende is situated at the entrance of the Channel area. So between the Netherlands and France, there is a little place called Belgium, and there you have a few ports, and one of the smallest ports is Oostende. In the, let's say, in the years 2000, we had a very, let's say, proactive and a very lively Ro-Ro business in our port, whereby that we had 6-7 lines permanently going to the UK. And then came the year 2008, 2009, when they had the financial crisis. And then, boom, let's say we went from 7 lines, daily lines or weekly lines, we went down to 1. So in other words, we lost our core business in 1 year time. And this made that we had no choice but to think about the future in a very rapid and a very strategic way. At the same time, from 2007 on, there was a framework within the Belgian Parliament and Federal Parliament. I do apologize for those who are not, let's say, common or not in line with the Belgian situation. We have many parliaments and many governments. So the Belgian Parliament has voted on kind of a plan whereby concessions could be given to companies who are willing to establish their offshore wind industry. This was for us then the opportunity to say, hey guys, there is a legal framework, has been voted by the Parliament. This will need definitely logistics and activities which need to be prepared at sea and on the quayside. So let's get in touch with the first park developer, which was Sea Power, and let's work together to develop a test pilot first, and later on a full construction of a wind park. So it was easier said than done. Let's say it like that. Now it goes very fast, but we had really a steep learning curve as a port authority in order to understand the business which is related to the offshore wind parks, the construction of the offshore wind park. So let's say from 2009 on, we have been, till last year, we have been actively working together with the different park developers to install 8 offshore wind parks, good for 2.2 gigawatts, which is standing in front of the port of Oostende. Installation phase number 1 is finished. We are now preparing installation phase number 2 for 2026, 2027. As we need to find somebody who is willing to prepare a cable and to put it in the sea to connect the electricity produced by the wind parks, the second phase of the wind parks, to the Belgian shore. This is under development. So today, as an offshore port, we are working mostly in O&M, so the maintenance, which is good for about, let's say, 800 people. We have about 400 wind turbines standing in the North Sea in the front of the Belgian coast. So we have 800 direct employment people working in the offshore and maintenance in Oostende. The future challenge, nevertheless, is not only this preparation of the second phase, but also the preparation of decommissioning. And last but not least, let's produce hydrogen, a new challenge. But I give the floor to the colleagues Maciej and Matthaus. They are very happy to jump on this kind of activity as well.
For me, the story of the Port of Oostende has always been very inspiring, a very stoic one. The impediment to action precedes action. What stands in the way becomes the way.
I will discuss this with a very big beer. How to take the obstacles away. It has a very interesting.
You convinced me. Maciej, pretty much the same question to you. Can you list the factors, the events, the trends, both local and international, that have made Gdynia start working on the outer port project?
Yes, I can say that it's not a very new project because we just now working on this project since not less than 2 years. But of course, the first and most important thing is the growing demand for container transport, and we are not talking about the demand in the last or 2 years, but in the long term. Please note that how ships have grown in the last 20 years. Today, all major ship owners are building ships with a length over 400 meters and capacity of over 24,000 TEU. And the design offices are already working on even larger units, included alternative drivers with even greater parameters. In addition, the construction of such a large infrastructure, because we talk about the pier, which will have more than 150 hectares, this infrastructure is planned for the 15 and more years. It's worth noting that the loading of containers in the existing port is growing year by year, often at a double-digit rate, and the prospects in our port are very promising, as confirmed by international companies researching the container transport market. For example, IHS market told me that the growth in container market will be not less than 4% year to year. So the current infrastructure requires significant expansion in order to be able to handle such large units. Today, it is possible on the Baltic Sea only in Gdańsk, but we can see that we have the potential for 2 independent deepwater container terminals to operate on the Baltic Sea, and I hope that the second one will be in Gdynia. Of course, the second important factor is a very low level of containerization in Poland. It's a very important factor, and this is a great opportunity for us, of course, to fill this gap in Gdynia. The third important element for my point of view is our geographical location. The port of Gdynia has one of the best, if not the best, geographic location in the Baltic Sea and in the Europe. If we talk about the crossing of the transport roads, of course. It results directly from the lack of navigational obstacles, the shelter by the Hel Peninsula and the non-freezing port. So it is, we can say that it is a great base and to be a port that will be a base for feeder ships that will serve other ports in the Baltic Sea region, but not only the Baltic Sea region. I mean that we can be a very good point of start for the serving the port of rest of the Europe. What's more, as for the concept itself, it was of course developed for quite a long time, and is reflected in strategic documents such as, for example, the development strategy of Polish seaports and many others. In addition, we systematically participate in, and just now we participate in many meetings, talks, and conferences. We are an active member of the Baltic Ports Organization, ESPO, and several others, where cooperation between ports and its between the ports and ports authorities are very, very active. And it is our priority. This project is still alive, and we make appropriate adjustment all the time to make it as optimized as it possible to the needs of the market. We're still working on that. Yeah.
Splendid. We'll talk about port-to-port cooperation later in our power panel. Tomasz mentioned that the Port of Gdańsk has recently overtaken the Port of St. Petersburg as the top one container spot in the Baltic, but let me just remind that Gdynia has been for many years in the top 3 or 5 container ports in the Baltic, and after the first quarter of 2021 you are number 3. So
yes, we are still on the on the 3rd place, so yes, we are very happy.
So given the challenges you are facing, you are still managing to transship a shipload of containers. Okay, great, thank you very much. Now, Matthaus, an introduction from your side too, namely the past and present of the harbors that your port company is managing. And since there are several harbors under Niedersachsen Ports umbrella, it would be super great if you could be so kind and say a few words about each and every of them, their characteristics, strong points, as well as specific challenges they are facing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, Niedersachsen Ports is the port infrastructure company of the federal state, so we are state-owned. Our ports are scattered along the North Sea coast in northwest Germany, and we have 15 of them, basically, that we are managing, so they are small and medium-sized ports. Basically, 5 of them have an industrial focus, and 10 of them have merely a more touristic focus and are important for the island supply of the East Island. And basically our task as a port authority, as a port infrastructure company, is to maintain the port infrastructure, to maintain the locks, the quay walls, the lighting, the rails and roads. So all is needed basically for ports, and to develop it with in line with the customer's needs. So this is basically the focus. Concerning the cargo that we are handling, we can do basically everything beside containers, and do a lot of bulk, a lot of feed grain. Automotive is the quite strong focus in Emden, for example. We do raw metals as well as offshore and onshore components. So all the components for the offshore parks are transshipped through our ports in Emden and Cuxhaven, for example, from the grounding, the towers, the turbines to the blades. Everything is being organized from our customers, basically. And what are the challenges, or what are we looking at, basically, is, as Wim said, attract new businesses, especially connected to renewable energies. So try to find out what LNG can bring us, what green hydrogen, what potentials are there for the ports to apply green hydrogen, but to produce green hydrogen as well. And of course, strengthening the offshore industry and prepare ourselves for the decommissioning of wind turbines, as this will be an issue for the future that will come in 10 or 15 years, and we need to make sure that we are prepared for this. Another specialization or another focus, I would say, a challenge is to, we have a lot of infrastructure. We have around 30 kilometers of quay walls. We have around 70 kilometers of railway. So to keep this in a good state is another challenge. So concerning the maintenance of the ports, we need to be smarter. We need to use digitalization as far as possible, and basically optimize the port process to digitalize this, to digitize the registration of the ports. So this is basically the focus that we are looking at. And we are quite in a good, in a convenient situation, I would say, due to our group structure that we have. We consider every port as a test field, basically. We put some projects in the different ports, test them, learn, basically share the knowledge. And it's a good solution that we find, it can be easily transferred to the other ports. And when we're looking about innovation, it always has to have an added value for us. So we need to be smarter, save costs, be more productive, more efficient, and at the end, of course, not to lose our license to operate, be more green and future-proof.
Mm-hmm. How hard or maybe easy is running such a port developing company, having to take care of several harbors. I imagine that your budget isn't made of rubber and bottomless.
Yeah, basically, it is advantages and disadvantages, of course. Yeah, you have only a fixed amount of money that you have, and you have to prioritize where to put the money in which infrastructure. So this is quite challenging. But the plus basically is that we can be test fields, that the ports can be test fields, and we can transfer and learn from each other, and basically transfer ideas to the ports.
Right.
Once they're approved. Yeah.
Thanks. Now, gentlemen, back to the future. Wim, what is currently in Oostende's pipeline when it comes to traditional port activities like cargo handling on the offshore wind front, and when it comes to the port authorities' own green agenda / energy transition?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. Triple question, triple answer. So living in the country of the triple beers, it's I feel very comfortable. And on the traditional business, I would say we are investigating again the opportunity to develop a new Ro-Ro line. This is very clear. Considering the Brexit activities, considering the redevelopment of the Irish market, there's a lot of things are changing within the UK, I would say the traditional UK-Irish activity. Secondly, as to the bulk, we definitely, we have a lot of on-the-spot lines between West Africa and the Baltic Sea. That's really our core, let's say, areas that we are working with. We would like to structure this a bit better and to go to regular bulk lines between definitely the Baltic Sea and, if possible, also with the West of Africa. So that's for us a key option if we look to the traditional business. There are several products where we have enough industry within the port where we can work with. It's a matter of consolidating and prices, because the bulk market now is, or let's say the logistics for the bulk market is quite expensive. As to the onshore, as already mentioned, daily business today is maintenance of the wind parks. 400 wind turbines need to be investigated, spotted, whatever, controlled, need to be repaired, need to be revised. So this is absolutely 100% daily business. And as we see the market for the decommissioning coming in, the first wind park has been, let's say, developed in 2010, 2011. So we understand that within 5 years, we will have the issue of breaking down the whole business, unless there will be other regulations from the legal point that there is a prolongation of concessions, like it has been decided for one of the parks already this, I would say, yesterday. Mm-hmm. So that's a matter that we have to prepare ourselves. It's different from the oil and gas as usual. So it's not something which is to be copied from oil and gas. There is another drive, as well as, let's say, the drive which is coming from the onshore wind turbines, where we're also in a situation, this is an older market, where there is a second-hand market, which is very active, mostly to Ukraine and further on. Secondly, there is also refurbishment and destruction. So that's another market which is coming up, which we have to investigate and see where is the issue related to, or is the market related between logistics on the one hand and circular economy on the other hand. Why do I say this? Because we are working with different companies in our port area, which are focusing on recycling. The different materials which you have in a wind turbine, which is more than 100 different kind of pieces. Last element, the own agenda of the port related to the green activity, the green agenda. Of course, we are very much investigating in the possibilities for making our management greener. In practical terms, it means that we are investing in little projects like setting up our own wind turbine, organizing the load posts for electric cars, making that the infrastructure is step by step getting more ready for the land side, but also on the sea side and the water side. And this is definitely a big challenge because we know we have to go to a multi-fueling system in the near future, where we have to be able to deliver classical gasoline or diesel, ship diesel. We have to give hydrogen, we have to be able to give methanol, we have to give LNG. So for a smaller and medium-sized port, how can you manage a system whereby you can deliver your clients the suitable energy source? That's a big challenge. Then we have also the electric shipping, which is coming in more and more. So today it's a huge question for ourselves, how we're going to organize our energy management within the port. This is something we try to work out in different projects together, also with Niedersachsen ports. But we have not found solutions yet. And every day I'm speaking with different potential clients. It's a different story. To give a small example, the wind park owners will ask in the near future that the ships which are operating and maintaining the wind parks, they have to be green. This means electric, or they have to use hydrogen. So forget about with your stinking oiled, shoe boxes that you put on the water. With gasoline, they will not enter anymore in these parks. So as a service port, we have to be ready that we can serve our clients. And this is a huge challenge for us.
On the recycling topic, in the Danish port of Aalborg, they have made a bike shed from a wind blade.
I have seen this example, but we try to go a little bit further. We try to see where we can reuse some of the products, and I'm thinking especially about those chemical substances, to reuse them as a basic material for the plastic industry, which we have as well in the neighborhood of the port, so that we have really a cycle, so that we really can speak about circular economy. So it's a challenge as well. We are now working together with some research institutes and some enterprises to find some solutions, which is, as usual, easier said than done. A lot of attention and a lot of energy goes in this kind of project, especially as we see that the nuclear lobby is putting this very much into the picture, that wind energy is not sustainable because you cannot recycle, blah, 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 blah. So 25,000 pages about why it's not sustainable. 95% of the wind turbine is recyclable. So if we look to the nuclear waste, I think we have a nice discussion who is recycling most. But that's something for the European Commission and the big boys to discuss.
Certainly. Thank you very much. Maciej, sticking to the outer port project, what is the current status of development? Because I believe that Gdynia's clients want to see those 400 meters plus long behemoths calling to Gdynia, but what is the current status? How long till the first giant ship comes to Gdynia, as well as other initiatives you are involved in outside the outer port, because Gdynia is not only about containers.
Yes, of course. A lot is happening here in terms of infrastructure development in Port of Gdynia Authority. As a part of the investment related to the outer port, we are waiting for the environmental decision. We expect it at the turn of June and July this year. We start geological and ferromagnetic research. At the same time, we will start designing. I mean about the designing of breakwaters, especially. At this, what's more, the most important information is also that we have, of course, 4 very serious companies and consortia interested in building the outer port. Currently, the procedure for selecting a private partner is underway under the public-private partnership procedure, because this project is implemented in this kind of formula. And we are before the start of the competitive dialogue. I think that we will start the competitive dialogue in the first stage of May this year. What can I say?
Commissioning deadline for our audience to know.
Yes, and one very important information is that at the same time we have already concept of extending the functionality of the outer port with an offshore terminal. Here we are practically ready to build it by the end of the first quarter of 2025. And of course, in this matter, we are only waiting for the government decision that will allow us to start. But what can I say more? That the benchmark for us is port for Oostende. So, hello Oostende. Yes, we had a special practical visit in Oostende. So I hope that we will have the offshore terminal as good as in Oostende. In addition, of course, already in June this year, we will be able to launch a completely new and extremely modern ferry terminal equipped as a first Polish port on onshore power supply. Intensive reconstruction of the quays is underway related to the dredging of the port to 15.5 meters. I mean about the internal port just now. Just yesterday we finished widening the internal entrance to the existing port, and this means that we can safely accept ships up to the length of the 366 meters. And of course, we are also working very intensively on the expansion of railway siding in the port of the Gdynia port station. We have started the construction of storage yards. As soon we will start the construction of another intermodal terminal, because intermodal general is very important in our port. I must admit that the port of Gdynia is today, in addition to a well-functioning port, also a huge construction site, which create additional challenges for us, because of course uninterrupted service for our customers is our priority. In addition, there are research and development projects in the field of drone technologies and digitization of port processes. So I can say that we have a lot of work to do.
On the topic of being one big construction site, could you kindly say something more about the upcoming opening of the new ferry terminal?
Yes, we will be ready at the end of June this year, and I hope that the first operator will use it terminal in September this year. And the second one, because I hope that we will have two operators on this terminal, will start in October this year. Of course, there is, as I told you, there is a first in the Polish port OPS, so onshore power supply system, very innovative. And of course, I hope that there will be in the future, of course, the LNG ferries. So we are prepared, because if I can say, we were the first port in Poland who bunker the LNG vessels in Poland. So yeah, we are prepared. It's very, very new, very new.
Great. And what will happen to the old ferry terminal? Do you have plans for it, for the area?
Yes, so we'll have some. We have it for some kind of reserve for us, for the safety, and of course maybe we will have some new partner, but I cannot tell you more just now.
Okay, fair enough. Matthaus, what are the development plans Niedersachsen Ports has for its diverse harbors, especially in your field of activity, that is sustainably oriented business development? Please bring to the fore the numerous projects you're involved in. I mean, Smart Key, Energy Scouts, Non-Stop, SIPBIN, Wash to Emden, and the Let project. But if you could be so kind and place a special focus on Energy Scouts, an initiative that puts the human factor in the center of the sustainability attention.
Yeah, basically, the strategy is to test, and see what the best for us, which solution is the best. So we have set up, a lot of projects, basically, research project, cooperation project with external partners, with other ports, with research institutes. I would like to emphasize one project first that I'm still working with Stubbe from Port of Oostende, which is dual ports. Dual ports started 2015, basically, and it's will end next year. And the idea behind dual ports basically is that every port, we have some 10 ports in this project, is working on aspects of how to decarbonize port business. So we are working all towards one goal, but everyone has a specialization. Like, for example, the Scottish ports are working on the potential of hydrogen. The Danish ports are working on LNG as the energy carrier, or how to basically extend port area with local recycled materials in order to save carbon emissions. So we, as Niedersachsen Ports, we're working on two working packages. The first one is smart lighting, where we have developed basically or realized an infrastructure for smart lighting for a railway system at the port of Emden in order to use the newest LED technology, as well as smart sensors that help us to save energy, that help us to save lighting, and that make sure that only this amount of lighting is emitted, how much is needed for the respective situation. So it's quite a flexible lighting system that we have. And we have quite good experience with this, and we have set the goal for all the ports to transfer to 2025 100% on smart LED. So this was one outcome. One very important aspect of the project was the Green Port Officer aspect, where we have developed basically a strategy, a sustainability strategy for all the ports. We have developed a sustainability management for all the ports to make sure that the topics are on the table, that they won't get lost, and to set goals, basically, concrete goals on energy transition, on carbon emission, on alternative fuels. And these goals, basically, or this strategy created a broader commitment for sustainability. And basically, I must say that the Dual Ports project was a starting point for a lot of projects. And it somehow created a spirit of innovation and sustainable development, basically, in our port. So I won't go through all the project. I would just mention some. What to Emden basically is the project where we have seen the hydrogen topic will show up 3 years ago already, and we need to prepare somehow. We need to know what the potentials are, and we need to learn what the consequences for a port authority will be. And we have found out there is a potential, a big potential for hydrogen. The cost is still too high, as there are too many fees, too many payments that need to be done. It's a competitive disadvantage, basically, between fossil fuels and renewables. And we have analyzed some, basically, 3 touching points to hydrogen where we play a role. We have found out that in 2050, the 2/3 of the green hydrogen that we need will to be imported. Mm-hmm. So we need to prepare for the import of hydrogen. We still don't know in which kind of energy carrier they will come. If this will be directly hydrogen compressed, if this will be transferred in ammonia or methanol to have a better handling. So still these are questions. We have seen that ports are excellent places basically for producing green hydrogen due to the vicinity to the offshore parks basically, and we have found out a lot of potential application for hydrogen. So this is one big issue. How do we enhance our people, our employees into all the sustainable developments? We have created together with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry a project called Energy Scouts. This is a training program basically where we train all trainees in the port to become energy scouts. They get a training on energy transition, on energy efficiency, on project management, and based on this knowledge, they have half a year to develop own projects in the ports. And till now, we have developed a lot of projects together with the people that we have created a good awareness for this issue. So transferring of lighting was one issue, optimizing the heating, and to raise general awareness for the importance of energy transition and energy efficiency.
What was the attitude of people to be engaged in such an initiative? Because the general perception of the port industry is that we are quite conservative. We fear new things and changes, and now you are encouraging people to learn to obtain new skills. Were those people proactive in hopping on the bandwagon of this initiative, or were there, the management is thinking things?
Yeah, basically due to the fact that the management or the general management is behind these all issues, it was quite easy to get the people on board. Of course, at the beginning, everyone is reluctant, especially when you start with a sustainability topic. We have to save money and stuff, so they're very reluctant. But I think we've had a shift in culture meanwhile, and now it's almost normal. I mean, I don't have to say, look at this, look at that. So the people come to me with their ideas, and basically I help them to organize funds, I help them to organize knowledge, basically, and they do it on their own. So we were quite successful till now. We were able to cut our carbon emissions between 2014 to 2018, almost 50%. And we were able to cut our energy consumption around about 20% in the last 3 years.
That's inspiring. Thank you very much. Now, gentlemen, I have brewed a question, an overall question to all of you. Matthaus has mentioned energy, hydrogen, LNG, in general, opportunities and challenges. So let's talk about the European Union. Your hopes and fears in relation to the European Green Deal and the port industry's role in rolling it out. What would you like to see from the side of the European Commission? Perhaps more and easier access to Connecting Europe facility funds, better cooperation, port to port and port to start and scale ups. And if you would have the authority to change the TNT, what areas would you favor more? Who would like to be the first one to pick that ball and run with it?
Yes, okay, shoot your ball. I will pick it.
Okay, your take on the European Green Deal.
Yeah, well, let's say
always vocal about the politics, so to say.
Well, let's say that the Green Deal is, of course, if you look it from, you're standing at the shop window and you look inside, and the Green Deal looks like fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's a super television with lots of colors and bleeps and all things, and it looks super trooper. And oh my God, what will we realize here within 20 years? That's the Green Deal. Then you go in the shop and then you start to discuss about the price and what the facilities are and what kind of connection you need and blah, 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 and wires and etc. And then you find out that the Green Deal is a tricky thing, which gives chances, opportunities, but also has some, let's say, some challenges, mm-hmm. especially if you're working in an SME port. If I look a little bit to the TEN-T and the CEF, and then I see the new regulations coming on, then I say, okay, the guys in Brussels have not learned anything. Sorry to say, we had been a witness from yesterday and the day before from the creation of a fantastic Super League in football, where mm-hmm. all the major players are sitting together to earn even more money. And I have sometimes the feeling that the TEN-T and the CEF is something similar. Mm-hmm. Those, we call this in Dutch, we call this the Matthaus effect. And I'm sorry, Matthaus, it's not about you, but it's a term in sociology and politicology. It's called Matthaus effect. Those who have a lot get more, and those who don't have get less. That's a classical, let's say, issue on sociology, whereby that you see that you will get a concentration of means, of funds and investment in certain places, creating even more problems. And that's the thing which has not been seen. One of the topics is that I feel is that ports are still related to a number fetishism. We know about fetishism, but we see that many ports are still, I'm number 24th on the list of the world ports, I'm number 16 on the blah, blah, blah. So open your shirts, show your breast, and say, hey guys, look to my muscles. If I look to the, let's say, to the philosophy which is behind Green Deal, then I say, hey guys, you want to have a more ecological approach on transport, logistics, and these kind of things in combination with, I mean, ecological and economic parameters. We are not stupid. Let's say we are not only looking to the green sun and the green flowers, which are booming up everywhere, but we know that we still have to work in an economic environment. Nevertheless, I still see this focus on number fetishism. If you're big, you have to become bigger. If you're Liverpool, you have to become more Liverpooler. If you are whatever Real Madrid, you have to become more Real Madrid, blah, blah, blah. So what I see there is that you get again the same story on the table, whereby that the mix between ecological added value, creation of added value, and that's what we talk about. That's why we have European funding, to create more added value in the local conditions, combined with the social factor, that this is not still used as a kind of a parameter, as a basic assessment for investments. I give a very clear example, and this is for Belgium only. The Belgian National Bank makes every year an evaluation of the different ports on basis of the economic added value, not on basis of the number fetishism. And then it finds out that the container port like Zeebrugge is less economic relevant than the port of Oostende, because we create much more economic added value and we have more employment and more ecology. So this is, I think, a very important move in the mindset, which is still not there in Brussels or in the capitals of the ministries which are still dealing with the point. No, the ministers are still trying to decide that this collaborator of Matthaus has to use this green screwdriver because otherwise he will not get his money. That is the reality, what we see every day. Of course, I make it very black and white, just to make it a little bit, let's say, to open the discussion. We know that there is a lot of added value in the European funding in port development, but please make it in line with the Green Deal. And I miss somewhere that in European funding, the role of the ports has become much more different. We are not only logistic hubs anymore. We are centers for energy production and consumption and storage. We are centers for innovation and blue industry and marine industry. These are three functions. In the latest text of ESPO, I see that these roles are now recognized. More and more, I can find back that this kind of elements are taken up in the port management. But please, we are much more than just a place where you move a box from point A to point B. And that's something which is still work in progress.
Yes, I agree with William. I think that that is why, for example, we in Port of Gdynia Authority try to be not the biggest port. We want to be the biggest port in the world because it's impossible, and we want to be that. We can be very smart, very ecological port, but not the biggest one. And what can I more for us? For example, Green Deal is a chance. It's an opportunity to take a part in this Green Deal in European Union by the building of, for example, of the offshore terminal. But of course, it's only a part of the biggest thing. And what can I more? What can I say more? If we talk about the TNT corridors, I think that the current transport corridors of the TEN network are quite well organized, but from the point of view of the Port of Gdynia, it would be good if our corridor, which we are at junction point, would be extended further to Sweden, to Karlskrona, because just now we are only something what we called a motorway of the sea from Gdynia to Karlskrona. Maybe it's a good idea to extend it to the north of the Sweden. And of course, a good idea for us is to maybe create a new corridor directly to the Great Britain, because we have a very good connection just now. And taking into account that we are on the crossing of the Europe roads, we can build something new. Maybe this kind of the sea corridor directly to the Great Britain. It's a good idea. Maybe.
Sure. Matthaus, your take on the European Green Deal?
Yeah, of course, I would.
Is it a big candy shop for us, or is there a price for getting greener?
I mean, access to funds is the magic ingredient, I would say, for every development, for sustainable development. And this needs to be, you need to make sure that ports can access different funds. And of course, it's desirable. Our ports are not in the TEN-T. I think just one is Wilhelmshaven, is in the TEN-T core network. The other ones are comprehensive ports, basically. Yeah, everything falls and with the money, with the funds that you have for creating projects, and infrastructure, basically. I would like to put one focus on energy transition. That always need to keep energy transition in mind. It means we need more and more offshore power in the future, as the future will be based on e-fuels. We don't have an alternative, basically, and I think we have to set very high expansion targets in order to meet the targets of the Green Deal. If we think about hydrogen, the renewables are the raw material for all kinds of future fuels, and we need a lot of them. We want to produce LNG, methanol, and stuff. So this needs to be considered on a very high level, basically. One aspect still or a wish that I have to the European Commission is to be technology open, basically. Not prescribe too much, basically, as technology is changing very, very fast in the last year. It's revolutions, basically. And one solution that made sense yesterday may not make sense tomorrow. So, be open for technologies to set targets, basically, that we have an orientation, we have a framework, but do not prescribe, for example, onshore power supply, fixed station at every berth. So this makes no sense from my point of view.
Okay, great. Any other remarks on the European Green Deal, or should we proceed to the cooperation part of our debate?
I'm watching your clock.
Yes, 13 minutes till the end, so I'm very much concerned whether we should try to summary, get our crystal ball working, what should be the future of the port industry from your perspective, or should we rather put the focus on cooperation? For example, the first thing anybody visiting the port of Oostende's website is the following motto, quote, where the maritime industry meets research and development, end quote. So the overarching question would be what kind of benefits the port industry can get from being more open to onboarding experiences and expertise from other sectors. So that would be the question for you. Maciej, a special focus on getting money from Norway grants and cooperation within the Baltic Ports Organization, and Matthaus working hand in hand with the partners, with the clients of the ports.
So 3 questions and 3 answers you expect. So I will start then. What is the need for opening up the doors to different technologies? We have been speaking a lot already about the e-fuels. I think definitely what Matthaus is mentioning is an absolute necessity. Another element which I see, this means that you have to work with the recycling industry, you have to work with the chemical industry, you have to work with different sectors, and you have to make a crossover. And you have to see if there is a business case. So the economics guys are also on the table, because as mentioned, the price for green hydrogen, if we only look to the price of green hydrogen today, then we say, sorry guys, but I'm going to take my sun chair and I'm going to put myself in the garden here. The sun is coming out and I will wait for another 5 years, and maybe we'll have this really relevant price. So we have to develop, as Port Authority, we are not just leaning back anymore and waiting till the ship comes in and then handle it and then put it on the car or on the train. We have a responsibility towards our regions and our community. And this is working together with the locals industry. Another topic I would like to mention, which is next to the e-fuels, from Matthaus, is autonomization. 3 years ago, we have made the first test to have an extremely mini boat going from the UK to Oostende, which was completely unmanned, and which was, let's say, followed by satellite transmission. Now we are preparing another phase. We are going from a mini boat to a mini boat. So whereby we will try to test and facilitate the possibilities for autonomization of shipping. In the Belgian or Flemish waterways, they have now made tests between Antwerp and Zeebrugge for semi-autonomous shipping, whereby for the feedering issues, there will be other kinds of technologies be used, involving different parameters and different players. Is this the end of shipping? On the contrary, because it will be just a new way of organizing your feedering business. But as a port, you have to be ready for that. And that's why we invest a lot of time in our, let's say, in cooperation with the research. We are an SME port. We will never have 500-meter ships from Maersk coming in and putting billions of boxes on the quayside. So we have to find our added value. And we see a lot of added value in developing new technologies. And that's why I think we have to have as a port authority, it's crucial to have this open mindset and to see where are the needs of the clients, as well as what is the needs of the local community. So you can try to combine both elements.
Great.
That's my answer.
Thank you. And we will leave it there because the organizers are nudging me to start the break. So Wim, Maciej, Matthaus, a tip of the hat to you for taking part in this power panel. Thank you very much, and I'm more than looking forward to chatting with you also in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Yep. Thank you. Take care.
So, ladies and gents, we are now heading for a break, and we are back 1300 CET sharp, so in about 8 minutes. See you then.